Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to welcome to this Thursday, March the 18th, 2021 virtual regular meeting of the North Augusta Planning Commission. We'll start off with our roll call. And as always, I will say your last name. If you could then state your first and last name so we can have it on the record. Commissioner Key. Unmute yourself, Tim.
Timothy Key, present.
Commissioner Watts.
Larry Watts, present.
Commissioner Mackey. Commissioner Mackey.
So mute.
Commissioner Crawford. Okay. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Say your first name for the record.
Robert Clark here.
Okay. Commissioner Mackey.
Present. This is Joanne Mackey.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter.
Commissioner Lynn Carter, President County Forum.
And Commissioner Britton Williams. So is Commissioner Crawford on the line yet with us? Okay. All right. Approval of the February 18th, 2021 regular meetings. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections? If not, they will stand as distributed. Mrs. Hodges, do we have any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay. So we're going to jump right in with application MW21-021 Sweetwater Freestanding Emergency Department. A request by UHS Sweetwater, Aiken Regional, for a waiver from the landscaping requirements of the North Augusta Development Code, Section 10.7. And we will be going through the 5 criteria for approval for the waiver. So at this point, Mrs. Hodges, anything you'd like to share with the commission?
I do have one tiny change. The applicant has requested that one additional tree be added to this waiver request. During the site plan revision process, they found one more tree that they needed to move. And I've got a drawing of that at the end of this section. So we can take a look at that when we get to that point.
So from 3 to 4.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hodges from the commissioners? I see Ms. Crawford, Commissioner Crawford. Okay, great. Okay, and this time, if the applicant would like to unmute themselves, and if you would please state your first, last name, and your address for the record.
Yes, this is Ty Cole. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good to have you, Ty.
I'm at 912 Salter Road, Homewood, Alabama.
Okay. Well, nice to have you with us, sir. If you would, excuse me.
Oh, sorry. I was about to introduce myself. Please go ahead.
Okay, no, Ty, go ahead. So if you would like to share with us what you are bringing to us, and if you'd like to also comment about any of the criteria that we need to know about. So I'm going to turn it over to you and go with it. Go for it.
Okay. Really what we have is a property that, in addition to all the properties in this development, all the developer put trees around the perimeter of each parcel per the agreement with the city and the approved landscaping. So now we've come in to put a project on there. We've got 4 trees where our 4 access points are. So those 4 trees we will move to another location and replant them. These trees were just planted in January. So it should be easy for us to go ahead and take those 4 trees at the 4 entrance points to the site and relocate them. In addition to that, we have 3 additional trees out by Austin Graybill Road. We would like to relocate those as well. so that we get a little bit more opening to the view of the FED, so that people that are coming to the freestanding emergency department for the first time, they probably have some would have a little bit of distress to someone that's, injured or something. So we do want them to be able to see the facility. We would also relocate those trees. Now, that's not to say that we would not still have landscaping out in the front. It would just be lower type of landscaping so that the building was in view. That's really the substance of what we're asking for the waivers from the original perimeter of trees to let us relocate those total of 7 trees on the property with the additional landscaping that we'll be providing.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant from the commissioners? I know we'll talk about that the next part of it, but tell us a little bit about exactly what y'all are doing. I don't think we've had an emergency, partial emergency center here in North Augusta before. So tell us a little bit about the project, if you don't mind, sir.
Sure, no problem. So the main hospital, Aiken Regional, this is a freestanding emergency department, which is an extension of that main hospital. Therefore, it allows the hospital now to extend their emergency department facilities to other areas of the, I think it's within a 25-mile radius. It does vary from state to state. I think it's 25 miles in this state. And so we're providing an extension. It has all the capabilities of a freestanding emergency department as the hospital has to a point. After someone comes there and is taken care of and evaluated, for the most part, anything can be taken care of there and you can go back home at that point. If something shows up at a point where it's a little bit too much or it becomes something that should get back to the main hospital, at that point an ambulance would be summoned, the person would be stabilized, and they would transport him to the main hospital. UHS is starting to do this in several of the states to allow their main ERs then at the main hospitals not to be so overcrowded and allow these types of freestanding ones to help take the burden off of the main hospitals.
So the entire facility is emergency. No walk-in prompt or anything like that. Okay.
Right, and there's no beds or anything like that. It's just exam rooms for treatment.
Okay, very good. Okay, any questions for Ms. Cole from Commissioners before we discuss the criteria? Okay, as you know, we have 5 criteria to determine a waiver request, and I will ask each of you, I will read the criteria, and do you believe that it doesn't match? And if so, as I call your name, if you'll say yes or no. Do you believe the proposed waivers do not appear to conflict with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
I do.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams is yes. Number 2, do you believe the applicant demonstrates through documentation and or studies based on generally accepted engineering principles that adherence to the standard provided by this chapter would pose a threat to health and safety or would undermine a policy set forth in the comprehensive plan or the purposes underlying the standard? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Britton Williams, yes. Number 3, do you believe the applicant consents to alternative standards and the Planning Commission finds that such standard is consistent with the comprehensive plan, will protect the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the purposes underlying the standards? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Britton Williams, yes. Number 4, do you believe the economic burden imposed on the applicant to comply with generally applicable standards outweighs the public purpose for such standard? Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter.
Yes, yes. You skipped me on the last one.
Oh, I see. Okay. Good thought. Mark you off. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Number 5 and final. Do you believe compliance with the generally applicable standards is impracticable due to unique topographical or other site conditions? Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey,
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford,
Yes.
Commissioner Clark,
Yes.
Commissioner Carter,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams, yes. Okay. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna give y'all a break again tonight. I will, make a motion. Based on the findings of the 5 discussed criteria and voted on, I move that applicant MW 21-021 Sweetwater Freestanding Emergency Department waiver request from the landscaping requirements of North Augusta Development Code, Section 10.7, be granted with the 4 conditions listed by staff on page 8 of the staff report. So there's a motion by Commissioner Chair Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Who said the second? Commissioner Clark? Who said the second?
I think I said one,
Oh,
and then
Commissioner Watts.
Crawford also seconded.
Okay, Commissioner Watts, second. Okay, all right, all in favor, Commissioner Key? Well, let me stop. Any final discussion about this? Okay, Commissioner Key?
Yay.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Britton Williams, so it passes unanimously. All right. Okay, Mr. Cole, we'll move to the second. We are now number 6, application SP 21-001 Sweetwater Freestanding Emergency Department. A request by UHS Sweetwater, Aiken Regional, for approval of freestanding emergency department on plus or minus 4.5 acre tract at parcel 010-18-10-003. And we are considering a major site plan. So, Mrs. Hodge, anything you'd like to share with us on this that we don't already know?
I'm just going to reiterate that this is the site plan that is associated with the waiver that you just sent through. They've received or are pretty close to receiving approval from almost all of our review departments. So we are ready to move to the next step.
Okay, any questions for Mrs. Hodges from commissioners? Okay, Mr. Cole, anything in particular you want to share with us?
I'm not able to hear you, Mr. Cole.
I think he's talking, but we're not hearing him yet.
Sorry. The old
That's
mute
okay.
button
I
got
didn't know
me.
if you had anything in addition you want to share with us about this.
Not really. I think the plan is presented there that you see is our proposed layout. It seems to work with all the different entrances off of Austin Gray build, the DOT criteria. I think we're, just kind of flipping through them. Not sure I have anything much more to add.
What's your time frame of hoping to be open?
Once we get our permit, We actually, these are it's a modular building that we build here in our plant in Alabama. So it's approximately a 6-month schedule. So we hope by the end of the year, we would be up and running.
You said earlier you're doing these at other locations as well. This is where y'all are moving toward?
Correct. We've been doing them in the states of Nevada, Texas, and Florida. This is our first one in South Carolina.
Okay, great.
Is it a 24-hour facility or are there hours?
It's a 24-hour emergency department. 7 days a week.
Great.
Just one question. What level is it? Level 1, 2? Is it for trauma?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Michael, who represents the hospital, if he's allowed to speak, he could probably answer that.
He is. If he would just state his first and last name and address for the record, that's all.
This is Michael Hall. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Aiken Regional. My address is 302 University Parkway, Aiken, South Carolina, 29801. There is, right now in the state of South Carolina, is my understanding, at least from the hospital perspective, right now, Aiken Regional is not a trauma certified. We do not have a current trauma level. We are working towards a level 3 trauma center, but the FED right now, or freestanding emergency department, would not have a trauma level associated with it. It is, as had been mentioned earlier, it has all the other functions as a normal emergency department, so it will be open 24/7. It will be staffed by emergency physicians that were boarded in emergency medicine. It will have all the capabilities, including CT, diagnostic, X-ray, lab, anything that you would have at a normal emergency department in a hospital, you will have at this location. It will only change on if you need to if you need to be admitted, then you would be transferred to the hospital. Or if you needed surgery for whatever reason, then you would be transferred to the main hospital.
Okay. Thank you.
Does a facility like this require a certificate of need, such as like maybe a not a hospice, but a home health, or is it different?
The state of South Carolina is a certificate of need state, so it did require a certificate of need.
You said we're not?
For a freestanding emergency department.
I'm sorry, I can't hear too well on my speaker. So you said South Carolina is not a?
No, it is. It is a certificate of need state. So we did get a certificate of need for this.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay. All the attendings, are they hospitalists? This is just curiosity. This doesn't have anything to do with something.
They are emergency medicine boarded. So
Okay.
they are boarded in emergency medicine.
And are they contracted or employees of the freestanding?
They are contracted. What we currently have right now in Aiken Regional, for our emergency room, that is contracted as well. Right now it is with sound physicians. We would imagine that our emergency or our freestanding emergency department would be with sound physicians as well. And that is what we are currently pursuing a contract with them to staff that facility as well.
Okay. Just curious. Thanks.
Oh, love to answer questions.
All good questions. Any other questions for either one of the gentlemen? Okay, well, I would entertain a motion from somebody.
I'll make the motion in reference to application SP 21-001 Sweetwater Standing Emergency Department. A request by UHS Sweetwater Aiken Regional for approval of freestanding emergency department. I'd like to make my motion for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Key. Is there a second?
Do we need to do that with the conditions for variance case will be applied, or is that already done? I'm sorry, that's a question of order.
talking about,
Under staff evaluations, it
on
says,
page 5 before conditions.
yeah.
Yeah, we can add that.
Second. Mr. Clark, second.
Okay. Libby, do you want, does Commissioner Key need to just restate that with the conditions, or is that fine?
That would be helpful to add the conditions. Please.
Okay. Ms. Key,
I'd like to make a motion or a, for approval with conditions for application SP 21-001.
okay, all right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Key. We have a second by Commissioner Clark. Any other discussions among commissioners? All right, we'll go for a vote. Yes or no, Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Mackey?
Yes.
Commissioner Crawford?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
And Commissioner Williams is yes. So it passes unanimously. So, Mr. Cole, Mr. Hall, welcome to North Augusta. Great to have you with us, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Y'all be safe.
And all of y'all are welcome to sign off unless you want to hear the audit report from our development code rewrite.
Oh, we're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're now at number 7, presentation of the audit report. And Libby, Miss Hodges, I'm gonna turn that over to you because I know we have a couple guests from Orion, but let you kind of guide us on what we need to do before we turn it over to them. So, Miss Hodges.
Okay, so basically all I'm asking for tonight, we just need to kind of go over the audit results. It's been to the steering committee for the development code rewrite. They've provided their initial feedback. This is an opportunity for you guys to provide some initial feedback as well. We're just kind of looking for a general endorsement of the direction from the consultants. Any typos or anything that you've noticed that need to be corrected. And once we have that, we will forward this up to City Council as well. Make any corrections that may need to be made, forward it up to City Council to keep them informed of the project and its progress right now. This gets us about almost halfway through the project, in all honesty. Of course, Carol and Bob are probably rolling their eyes a little bit because they've got to write it from here. So, but this is just, if you didn't read anything else, if you read the audit report, it kind of goes through their summary of findings, as well as providing their recommendations for the next step about how to use the audit and what their next steps will be in drafting. And once we get into the actual drafting of the document, we'll start to have some more substantive discussions about policy decisions that we may need to make within the code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Bob. I'm going to let him share his screen, and that'll take me just a second. But if y'all have any questions in the meantime, y'all are welcome to let them know.
Okay, I've got several questions, but I can just wait if you want me to.
Okay.
Let's turn off webcam.
Let's see what.
Hey, Jan.
There you go. Hey.
All right, I've shared with Bob.
Well, back up.
Okay,
Bob, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. We're happy to meet with the commission tonight. Let me give you just a little orientation to my particular internet connection. Although I live in the flight path of the Memphis International Airport, I have some of the worst internet service around. So I'm hopeful that this comes off without a hitch. They are in the process of running fiber in my area, so that'll be resolved soon. So put that little disclaimer up front. I'm joined by our partner and my colleague, Carol Ray. And what we would like to do is take about 20 minutes or so, 15 to 20, and just review at a summary level the audit results that you have before you, and describe our approach to the audit and how it's organized, and then briefly look at some of the actual results. That was our plan. If that's all right with you, we'll proceed in that direction.
That sounds great, and we can ask questions later. That'd be good.
All right, can y'all all see his screen yet?
I don't see anything yet.
No, mine says loading.
Dated. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything yet.
Okay.
Now,
Let's get.
okay.
All right. We got it. Okay. So you're actually looking at the table of contents. There's a few seconds lag time between my advancing of the audit and what you're seeing on the screen. So I'll flip on over. The table of contents is really a good starting place to understand the way we organize the audit, and it's very straightforward. There's no magic in the organization of it. We start out with an executive summary, which reviews just at the very highest of levels what is in the audit. We go into a section that introduces the project. Why would you audit a development code? Why did North Augusta authorize the audit of its own development code? A little bit about the project background. We describe our methodology and the process that we use, which you've been involved with and observed. It's a combination of community engagement, community feedback and interaction, and also our consultant observations from our own experiences in working with codes across the country. We move into our core findings and recommendations from there, and we've organized this into two parts. Part one deals specifically with the code characteristics. The code has some strengths, and then we take a look, and when I mean code characteristics, the formatting of the code, the way it's organized, the length of it. And I can see right now that my slide is going to be so delayed that we may want to have you share your screen, Carol. Okay. Libby, could we make that handoff at this time?
All right, should be ready.
I am trying to figure out how to do it. I'm sorry. I guess I can just share my main screen and I can blow this up. And can y'all see that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Bob, just tell me what page to go to.
Okay. So go on. We're at the table of contents.
Where I am
at the moment. Organized into two main parts: the core findings and recommendations in relation to the code characteristics, and then the core findings and recommendations in relation to the regulatory content of the code. That is followed by an audit implementation chapter. And then, Carol, you can scroll on down to the executive summary page. In fact, you can scroll beyond the executive summary page to, we'll skip over the introduction and let's go to page 7. which is the core findings and recommendations regarding code characteristics. In this particular section, we did want to call out, we didn't want to be thrashing the code from the word go, because there are certain strengths to the North Augusta Development Code, and we pointed them out, and they're elements that we would want to carry over into a new code rewrite. I mean, the code is exceptionally thorough. It has a sensitivity to design. It has a very high level of development standards. It's a unified code. There are strengths there that we would want to carry over. We point those out and then move into, on page 8 and 9, Carol, the plan code relationship. The code is intended to implement a comprehensive plan. We did an evaluation of the relationship between North Augusta Comprehensive Plan and the development code itself. And you will see on page 10, there is a matrix there where we plotted where the code relationship was strong, where it was weak, and where it was non-existent, and then made some assessment of that. The code is responsive to the plan in many ways. In many ways, it's not responsive to the plan, and so that can be addressed as we move forward. You'll see on page 11 the language, structure, and format overview. This just gets into, and I'm on 12 and 13, Carol, gets into the cumbersome nature of not all, but a lot of the language within the code. With redundancies are abundant. We pointed those out. The tables and the graphics are sometimes a challenge, particularly the tables themselves. And if you'll flip over to page 14, Carol, you'll see an exhibit. I won't go through this in the exhibit, but we point out some examples of where this exceedingly abundant footnotes, as you see at the bottom of page 14, hard to interpret, extraneous materials, disjointed, so forth. All that in the audit for you to review and consider. After each of these sections, I'm on page 17, Carol. After each of these sections, we summarize a set of recommendations in relation to that particular topic. So you'll see it there on page 17, what we would do to address the topic that's been discussed preceding that summary. And these will pop back up in a minute, so I'm not going to dwell on these summary points, but you'll get to them in a coherent and a coalesced format in just a moment. The next topic, we evaluated process and administration. Starts on page 17. On page 19 is a really interesting little hypothetical experiment that Carol devised, where we pretended like we were a random applicant for a variance under the code and what it would take to navigate the code. Walking in fresh and cold and navigating the process was an eye-opening exercise for us to get to the end. So that section, process and administration, is summarized on page 21. And then on page 22 is just one more example. This is an example of simplifying language. You'll see the current text before on one particular small section of the code. And then we just rewrote it to make it easier to digest and understand in the equivalent meaning after edits there in that little table, just to give a sense of when the code is rewritten, sort of what that would be like. So from there, we move into the major part 2, core findings and recommendations, which is the regulatory content. And we start off in regulatory content dealing with use patterns. And Carol, if you'll go to page 24 and 25, you will see an exposition there of exposing the inconsistencies and how the use patterns are organized and how we see them as being difficult to implement because of the nature of their organization and a lack of real clear purpose of what they're intended to do. So that's where we start the regulatory content, assessing the use pattern section of the code. As you move on to page 26 and 7, Carol, we move into the section of overlay districts, which we received a lot of input from the community when we were there. There was, and then our own assessment of it, trying to navigate the overlay districts, and we have overlay districts on planned districts, and it's quite a complex application of the concept. And fully understanding the legitimate purposes of the overlay district, the manner in which they are set forth in the code, it creates real administrative complexities and uncertainties. And that's what this section is intended to point out. And as you scroll on through, without going into the detail on the exhibits, page 28, you'll see where we compare on the top slide. This is a Knox Avenue focus area in the plan. The intention of the plan on the top half of the page 28, and then the actual zoning code application of it on the bottom half of that slide, and the I guess the mismatch or the again the complexities of the overlay district system was quite revealing. Creating infill challenges and redevelopment challenges. We walked through a couple of examples of trying to follow how to meet the infill objectives under that system. That's all assessed. And then on page 31, the same pattern follows. All of these topics have a summary set of recommendations. And in this particular one, one of the recommendations is converting the overlay districts into base districts. Would seem, if not all, at least some cases, much more clarity and simplicity, we believe. I'm moving on through. I'll quickly, I'm bumping on my 20-minute time, so I'll flip on through and get to the summary. On page 32, we discussed the precision of the districts and how to get at their purposes with clear and precise means to eliminate some of the vagaries in the districts of what they're intended to be used for, and perhaps too broad of an array of uses. And so we have methods of achieving a better precision in the districts. Coming on down, Carol, to page 36, we talk about planned developments. Planned developments make up an exceedingly large portion of North Augusta. Some of those plans have been developed over a long period of time, from the mid-'80s on through. There's a whole range of specificity in those, some very sketchy, limited information. The more contemporary ones are more precise. We think there's a big opportunity there to think through how plan developments, particularly the legacy plan developments, are handled and how they should be addressed in the development code. A big impact on North Augusta with the vagaries in the plan developments. I'm going to flip on down to, Carol, just going down to page 40. The non-conformity provisions, there's some, and then on to page 42, conditional uses, a couple of other issues in the code, regulatory issues we think can be addressed enhancing, you've got conditional use standards kind of scattered throughout the code. In some cases, there's conditional uses with no conditions and that might need to be addressed. So we call that out. Finally, before I get to the summary of the audit, there is a section on emerging trends. And this is not, this is included just to inform the commission of emerging trends that we see increasingly embedded in codes. It's not necessarily we'd have to address it in the rewrite, but if you wanted to address it, there are some matters here: housing choice and affordability. Then on 44, care on 45, transportation choice, and what that would mean for the code. And then flipping on down to 46 and 47, the communication infrastructure, what's happening in energy, and then urban agriculture is a big deal and growing daily. All of that there is just, as I said, to inform the commission about emerging trends in planning. If not addressed in this code rewrite, when you get ready to redo the comprehensive plan or update the comprehensive plan, all of those things will very likely play a significant part in that update. So we move then to audit implementation on page 49, and then Carol, if you'll go to 50 and 51. Every one of the summary points is recapitulated at the end here in a singular, or I should say a series of tables, so that the code structure and format, all of those summary recommendations are right there. And then the process and administration, all that list of recommendations. And these, if North Augusta says, all right, y'all go to work, we're going to work down this menu of what you see here. Unless we're redirected or need to be refocused or there's some other direction for us, this would be our initial recommended menu prior to your comments, of course. There's two other columns in these tables. One is the degree of difficulty, and this is a judgment call just to give a sense of what kind of a lift it is to get the job done for that particular recommendation. And you'll see most of the code structure and format is pretty easy because we're reorganizing existing material, we're rewriting sentences, et cetera, et cetera. When we move on down, Carol, if you'll go to page 52, when we get into the regulatory content and all of these points of recommendation, the difficulty increases a little bit, not because it can't be done or we don't know how to do it. We do. It's just that, for instance, if we convert the overlay districts to base districts, it'll be a little more involved process than simply rewriting the meaning of sentences. So you have all the summary comments there. Carol, I'm on page 55. That table wraps up. I don't have a total number of recommendations there, but there's a number of them, as you can see. And beyond that, I'm going to go to just very quickly point you to the focus. To the appendix A, which is page 59. From here on out, there's a series of about 6 appendices which really represent the work of the audit. So in appendix A, that's a summary of all the very good comments, very engaged focus groups. These comments guided our attention as we were doing the audit. So all of those comments are summarized. Carol, if you go to 67, we did a community survey. All the survey results are included in that support appendix. And then the way we did the plan code evaluation, the relationship evaluation is on page 77 and 78, and there's a lot of boring tables there. But that's the technical. It's a technical document you're looking at. It's not graphically, artistically beautiful, because it is a technical document, and it's intended to move us to a point. And the point is the code rewrite. So the code, as you go to Appendix D, Carol, you can just scroll through. We went through every line in that code and evaluated it based upon our methodology and the direction that you all gave us. And all of our observations are in that table, which is rather lengthy. And then it concludes with, I'm going to go all the way, Carol, I'm down to, we do have a best practice resource summary in Appendix E. And then Appendix F is a revised table of contents. So once again, if we were to be given the green light today or tomorrow, we would take the revised table of contents, and we would take the summary recommendations in the prior section there, implementing the audit, and we would begin tasking out our workflows and addressing the code rewrite based upon what you're looking at here in the recommended revised table of contents. Now, having said all that, my final comment, we'll do questions, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready. My final comment is this, that invariably when we begin to rewrite a code, something will shift or change, and even an opinion might change. Some additional information may come to light, or the practicality of what we thought was a really good idea on the front end, some other idea may emerge, and we'll have to adjust. For instance, and I'll use converting the base district to the overlay districts, or some of the overlay districts, to a base zone, that may expose more problems than we envisioned, and there may be some other alternative methodology. So my point is that the audit is a roadmap for your code rewrite team to move forward with under your direction. It does not mean every jot and tittle will end up as we have envisioned it in this audit assessment. Now I'm going to put a disclaimer on the disclaimer. I don't want to water it down too much. And we're confident in what you're looking at. We're exceptionally confident in it, subject to your review and redirection and correction as necessary. I'll stop with that. You are looking at, I said I stopped and I kept going. You are looking at a document that still has some copy edits left, so there'll be some flaws in the spelling and some various technical flaws that you may notice, but we'll get them all cleaned up before a final copy. Now I'm done.
Bob, that's fantastic. Before I open up for the commissioners to ask you some questions, and I know I've got a couple, but I'll wait till the end for that. I want to commend you and your team for what you put together. I've read this entire thing with asterisks and yellow marquees and dog-tailed ears on pages. I think you have touched on so many issues that I felt we had. I like the way you did the examples, walking through the girl who wanted to get her, the way you walked through different examples, real world examples, was fantastic. We really hadn't talked about things like communication wireless, which is huge, clean energy, bringing those up for us to consider. I like the way you talked about the housing choice of missing middle housing, which I think is a gap we have in North Augusta with affordable housing. So I was very impressed with the initial draft of what y'all have done. I want to thank you for all your efforts at this point. So with that being said, commissioners, I'd be glad to allow you to ask Bob or Carol any questions you may have. Well, I'll jump in then. I've got a couple. I was just curious, Bob, on page 10, one of the things that I think Libby has really focused on since she's come on board has been making the comprehensive plan a living document. I think historically in North Augusta, we paid a lot of money for a comprehensive plan, and we stuck it on a shelf and it got real dusty. And as you can see with everything, with every one of our applicants and everything the planning commission has done is been focused on that comprehensive plan. And I think that's fantastic. But when I look at this table, the matrix on page 10, I think to me, and I'm going to ask your opinion, even though I'm going to tell you mine too, it looks to me like we do have a disconnect between the comprehensive plan and the code. And I was just curious, how would you rank this? Do you see that? Am I reading it wrong, or is this how do we compare to other communities? Is there a big gap between comprehensive plan and the code? Bob?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and it's a great.
Oops.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think you froze.
Yeah.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you now, but you froze a minute ago.
Okay, let me give it a shot, and if I don't get it out, Carol, back me up, please. They typically, well, your comprehensive plan was done after your code. We're looking at a 2010 code, and we're looking at a 2018 plan. So automatically, we would expect that the code would not necessarily be responsive to the 2018 plan, or as responsive as it could be. So, I mean, some of those areas can be strengthened as we move forward with the code rewrite. But North Augusta has a comprehensive plan in its future, and the code that follows it needs to be written to implement that plan, so that the plan is not stuck on a shelf and has had no impact or meaning on the community. That's why we started the audit right there. What is the plan calling for that the code is not implementing? Right. And so we devised a method to kind of get at that, and this is the visual that we came up with. And I can't remember the second part of your question.
No, that was it.
Can I have a hook for that? Can I have a hook for that question then? So based on that, then shouldn't we tackle things like affordable housing as a part of this audit? Because then that will be a part of what comes next. Is that based on what you were just telling me or just saying?
It's in the emergency.
Yeah.
Right. But I guess there was some discussion about it being emerging and that we may or may not have to deal with it. And that could be something that we dealt with later, but wouldn't that mean that it's emerging, but also a priority? I guess that's what I'm trying to.
That's a good question.
So I have a couple of just from staff perspective. They're listed as emergent issues because there's a lot of evolving thought about it in the planning world right now. So we are about to get started on our comprehensive plan update coming up this year. So the contracts are signed. We're about to get started. Y'all will hear more about that next month. But I think it's incumbent on staff to bring that back to you guys. I think that we can get started with a development code rewrite. A lot of what I personally am reading in this audit document is that, there's structural issues that we need to deal with, and we can certainly do that right now. And if there are code issues that we want to tackle kind of once we talk about it a little bit under the comprehensive plan, I think it will make it much easier to incorporate those changes from there. Does that help you?
No, that's perfect. No, that explains the timing and how to think about it. So no, that's actually perfect. Thank you.
Who will actually, the part where you have on the recommendations, degree of difficulty, then you have a column with priority. Who actually will list those priorities? Is that going to be done to each phase of the draft to a final, or what is that column used for? Or when do we use it?
So we added that column in, and we internally debated, should we prioritize it or should someone else prioritize it? And we left it open as a thought provoker as much as anything. So you're looking at a list of recommendations, and we would address all of them. They're all priorities for us. They may not all be priorities for you. And I'm going to use my ongoing example. For instance, converting the highway corridor overlay to a base district of some sort, that may not be a priority, and you or something to that effect. Now, we might explain why we think you ought to do it, but if it's a low priority and we should focus on other aspects of the code, we need to know that. So you've got a column there, and I'm thrilled that you observed that it was blank.
Yeah.
Provoke internal thought as to are all these priorities, or some more important than others, or some not important. So we can, I guess to add to that, we'll go forward whether there's a priority or not. But I hope that's answering your question. If we need to assign them a priority, then we need to go there and do that.
No, you've answered it. I was curious. Okay.
Yeah.
What other questions y'all have?
Commissioner Clark, as a member of the steering committee, this is my second time through this, and I still came to the same conclusion. I agree with Britton's comments about the amount of work and the quality of work that's going into it. And I think we could spend weeks arguing over which one of the circles the black dot was supposed to be in, or some wording somewhere.
Yeah.
But I like the general approach. I think they've done a great job, and I'm all for turning them loose to follow that approach. We'll be able to look at specifics as we go along, but I think the general approach is very good. That's my comment.
Okay. Any other questions? Bob, I'll have to say I really got a kick out of the little bit of humor y'all stuck in on number, or maybe it was humorous to me, on page 12, talking about how the numbers are spelled out in parentheses in the code. And you said this format was common when documents were handwritten, but has not been necessary since typewriters became common.
Yes, that's correct.
And we see it so much in codes, so you aren't the only ones, but it
I thought I just chuckled with that. I thought that was really common.
Yes. Well, we believe it or not, we enjoy doing these audits, and we applaud North Augusta for commissioning an audit, because it is a very productive first step to rewriting a code, and it clarifies so much on the front end. So the city is to be applauded for that, for sure. And we appreciate the.
I'll tell you one thing that a lot of times what you did very good here is you used examples that you heard from the stakeholders in those meetings.
Yes.
So I think for anyone that we can go back in the community and let them know that, yes, they can see in here that you were listening and you did take a sincere effort to just, work that into this code rewrite where it made sense. So to me, you really checked those boxes. So I commend you for that again.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
All right. So if there are no other questions, Libby, I'm assuming basically all you need from us is a motion that we give them that we like the first draft and we want them to move on to the next step.
I don't even know that we need a formal motion. This is just a general consensus that, yeah, we're at the right place and, continue on.
Do you want to hear I'd like to have each commissioner at least be able to voice a positive. So I think you've heard how I feel about it. I know Commissioner Clark has shared, he's positive. So I think it'd be nice to know that, your thoughts from each commissioner, if you feel like you're positive about this. So if y'all would give us that feedback, I'd appreciate it for the record.
So, this Commissioner Carver, so I am again, no need to repeat the compliments that you all have already given them, but the ease of reading, the way that it is, I think that the focus group data was compiled so that it's very clear and easy to see what has both internal and external support. And so the approach and your thoroughness is appreciated and in favor of the direction in which they're going.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford.
Who else? Mr. Carter, how about you, Ian?
I think the audit in itself is very impressive. First time I've seen something like this in my tenure, and I think it's much needed. And I think we need to move forward. I think that's the bottom line. I think we've taken the first step, but there's many more steps to go. So I think we need to keep moving.
All right, great. Commissioner Watts?
I think we need to move forward.
Good. Okay. Commissioner Key?
Yeah, based on the thoroughness and how things are laid out for us, it seems to be in order. So I would be inclined to say move forward.
Okay. Commissioner Mackey?
I agree. I think we need to move forward. I think anything that will help us to find a way to clarify and make it simpler to understand is a better way than what we've been dealing with forever.
Well, Bob, that's 7 people giving you a yay on our end, so we can't give you more positive than that.
Thank you.
And we will coordinate with Libby on the next steps and move forward from there, and very much look forward to working with the commission as we go forward.
We thank you for your time. Stay safe.
Yeah.
I do have one question. Once the final document is drafted and it's in digital form, does it have a search engine? So say, for example, as a commissioner, or instead of going to the table of contents and picking out a spot, and then will it have a search engine built within the electronic document?
Good question.
There won't be a search engine in the native to the document itself, but Adobe, if you'll hit Control F, if you have an Adobe document open, Control F on a Windows machine, Command F on a Mac machine, and it will be a searchable document. We'll also, I don't know if this one is interactive or not, but I'll put one out that has a hyperlinked table of contents, so you can click the table of contents and hyperlink to that chapter. So it will be searchable, yes.
That's great. Okay, good. All right. Thank y'all, Carol, Bob. We appreciate your time tonight. Y'all stay safe. And Ms. Hodges, you want to lead us with the staff report? You're mute on.
Thank you all.
You got you're muted.
Okay. I'll quit talking to myself for a minute there.
We sound a little good.
So we've included the February monthly report in your document. I don't have a lot of staff updates at the moment. We have seen some positive movement on some of our SCDOT studies. So I am very hopeful that very, very soon we'll be moving forward with that. Comprehensive plan has been approved. Just the update has been approved. Contracts are signed. We will be bringing that to you guys at the April meeting. One question I have for all of you is if you would like to set that up as basically this first meeting is going to be an introduction to the project and kind of get your feedback on what your priorities are going to be for the comprehensive plan. So we've kind of toyed with whether we'll do that in a regular meeting or should we just set it up as part of the study session so that we can really have a much more open kind of conversation about it.
My vote would be a study session, just because I'd like us to have time to talk about it. I think it's important, especially with what we're doing now, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Is anybody else?
I would vote for a study session.
I think we need it in a study session too.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So I'll coordinate that and we'll get moving on that as well. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Do you want to tell everybody about your new staff, secretary or welcome person?
Sure.
That's,
so
if
you come and visit us, we now have a new secretary at the front desk. Her name is Stacy. She's doing a fantastic job. I'm very excited to have her here. She's filling in very well so far, learning quickly, been a great help. So if you see her, say hi. I think most of you probably actually have met her because she's been here while we've been doing the surface meetings. So
okay. Let me ask you, if we do this comp plan with the study session, what is our April looking like at this point? Does it look like it's going to be a pretty big, do you have a lot in the pipeline right now or too early to?
We have a fair amount. We were looking at it today. BZA has been light. Planning Commission has been heavy. So we'll have several cases on for next month.
Okay. Good enough.
Libby, any idea we will go back in person, or has that been decided or even talked about?
The discussion at the last council meeting is that it sounds like May might be when we go back. But some of that, really depends on what happens and, other external factors that I can't control.
Understand. And one other question was, how was the council as far as receptive to the Martintown corridor information?
They seem very receptive. The traffic engineer was there, Ryan Eckenrode. He was the same one. I believe he spoke with us as well, with the Planning Commission. Not a whole lot of big questions. Nobody seemed super surprised about it. Hopefully it will be going before council at the next upcoming meeting.
And I listened to it. Lynn and I listened to it, and I thought they pretty much jumped on our top 5. I mean, there was not really anything that I thought.
I just didn't know if the traffic circles may have caused them any problem along the way. I just didn't know. So
They were educated like we were.
Yeah, there were questions, and that's just fine. That's why we talk about these things. So.
They were educated like we were. They got educated. All right, anything else for Libby?
good.
All right, thank y'all all so much for making the effort with everything with the Surface computers and making that a little easier on Libby and the Dropbox and
so much.
being here. Everybody seeing Larry in person, be able to see your face. Wonderful. So anyway, thank all y'all for your time and efforts, and we'll see you shortly next month. Thank y'all.
All right.
Stand
Be careful
there.
out there.
Stand